minute to let people come into the room, and I'm also testing a whole new technology, which I do a lot. So in the description of this, when I'm done, I will put the time where I actually get to the question. But right now I am going to test just a couple of things to make sure that I'm going where I think I'm going.
Okay.
Look at that, there I am. But where is that? That's the question. I'm not 100% sure. It should be going to my timeline, which I'm going to find out right now. It is. It should also be going to the Bob Doyle Show page. And Mirtha, hello. Thanks for saying hello. And if you're out there, please do say hello. That's part of the first part of here where I'm testing for a second, and I promise you I'm not going to just, all right, so I am broadcasting there too, and we've got a handful of people over there, so welcome all of you. So there's Sarah and Jane, so please say hello. It's a roll call if you're watching, and then I'm going to get into this question. I'm going to try and make it concise because this really is supposed to be, you know, content, but I want to make sure things are happening. You know what I'm saying? Boy, that's pretty big. I might have to reduce the size of that one, but I wanted to play with it anyway. All right, so welcome to all of you. I believe that if you're watching this, we're acquainted, and you know that I have been basically teaching law of attraction stuff for like 20 years. But this question that I was going to ask is, it's not really even necessary to have the law of attraction conversation. Hello, Kathy. Hi, Judy. Just saying hello to everybody. See, there's Judy, but you can't see her comment. I need to make it smaller. I could do that right now, but I'm not going to. All right, so Sarah I obviously missed something, but it's not going to, wait, is it there? Jersey Mike in the house, okay, and there, right there, that's what she said. All right, so I have no idea what the context of that was, and I need to stay on track. So I was actually going to ask a different question when I started this, and then I thought, you know what, that's a convoluted way to get to where I'm ultimately going to end up. So I'm just going to shotgun this out at you here, okay? And I want you to ponder this, and some of you I've worked with for a long time. You know where I'm going, probably, and that's great. I really am wanting to get into the minds of people who haven't heard me say stuff for you know, a million times. But it's also good for those of you who have been around for a while. And in fact, you know what? It's even more important for you. So you know who you are, and thanks for being here and staying. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna bypass all the. I had my reasons for going down that road originally, but I'm going to bypass all of that and just ask you this: can you agree? Now, just be with me for a second. Can we agree that your experience of reality is determined by your brain? How your brain is interpreting all the input. Can we agree to that? While you're deciding that and answering, hopefully, I'm going to make those comments just a little bit smaller. But I want you to answer. Can we agree? All right, so Jane's saying yes. Now I want you to really, and I'm going to make sure that you do, really get this. Hold on, just going to make this a little bit smaller, and then we will I have to sorry guys, this is just, you know, this is when you're dealing with Bob Doyle, this is part of the package. So your comments are going to go away for a second, but then they'll be back at a reasonable size. Okay? So I think basically as I'm saying that, yes, we can agree on that. We've got yes, yes, absolutely agreed, yes. Right? So, doesn't that stand to reason that if you're not liking your experience of reality, like how you're interpreting it, whatever the conditions are, that you would need to change your brain so that you could make different meaning out of things and see different, because of that different meaning, make different choices, change what you believe is possible for yourself and all of that. Can we agree that if you don't believe you can do something, you probably won't take a lot of action toward it? Can we agree on that? Judy says it's all your own perception. That's right. It's all your own perception. Now, can we also agree? Now, I've been talking a lot recently about rewiring your brain and neuroplasticity. I got a whole webinar on it if you want to see it. That's not why I'm here. Can we all agree, do we all know enough about the nature of the brain to know what neuroplasticity is, which basically is just the ability for your brain to change? Can we all agree that our brain is able to change, adapt, learn new things? Can we agree on that? Hi, Betty Jean. Can we agree on that? That our brain changes. I mean, after all, we weren't born knowing everything that we know now. We didn't know how to walk. We didn't know anything. We just went, ah. That's us when we're born. Right? So our brain change as we get new input, right? So our brain, can we agree on all of this? I just want to see a bunch of yeses. Can we agree that if we aren't consciously taking control of the meaning that we're making things, that we can easily get programmed, especially at the beginning when we don't know anything about evaluating input? Let me ask that a little bit simpler way, if I can. Can you agree that given that our brain is just ready for input, that the way that you believe and think and make meaning of the world is going to be largely determined by your environment, your parents, the input that you uniquely get? Can we agree on that? And that your input is going to be different from really everybody else's input. So that your wiring, your belief about what's possible, is going to be uniquely different from another person's. Your opinions about what's true will also be different than another person, even though you might be talking about the same thing. Can we agree on that? That your perception of truth and what is true about reality, about yourself, about other people, that's 100% determined on your wiring. Hey, Richard and Kelly. All right, and can you see that because other people in the world have had other input and thus been wired / programmed in other ways, that they have made different choices, different decisions, taken different action than is even possible for a person who hasn't been wired to even see those actions as a possibility? Can we agree on that? Getting a lot of yeps and yeses even. Yeses and yazzes. Okay. So, given what we've already agreed upon, but the most important one is that our brain can change, let's talk about what changes it. We already talked about what got it there in the first place, right? It was just programming. You just repeated information that you didn't evaluate, that you accepted as truth, at least up to a point. And in all of that acceptance, you were wiring your brain. You were building neural pathways. Can we agree on that? Karen, hang in there. Or Kareem, sorry. Didn't, you know. So if your brain had been programmed or wired differently, you could have made other choices. You could have seen more possibility for yourself, where maybe you stopped yourself before because you had some wiring that says you can't do this, or it's too hard, or you don't know how, or whatever it is, or that you took a first attempt / as a failure that meant that you should stop, whereas another person with different wiring could experience the exact same experience that you called a failure and learn from it and move on. Would you agree that the difference between you and that person is simply wiring in your brain? Yeah? So, if we agree that different wiring in your brain could serve you better, and we know that you can change your wiring, do we all know this? Then why would we not spend every moment of every day giving ourselves different thoughts than the ones that we're having that are keeping us feeling limited or slow or behind or small or impoverished or whatever your situation is? Why would we not spend if we woke up and said, oh my God, it's just programming, a whole freaking lifetime of programming that's done this. If I start to change the programming and change the wiring, I can make different meaning out of the world. I can interpret situations every day in a much more empowering way than I do now because I'm wired to become disempowered by them. Guys, in all my coaching, I have dealt so often with people who beat themselves up because they can't, quote unquote, do this law of attraction, hold a vision for long or whatever it is. They're beating themselves up. I should know this, I should know this, I should know this. And what they are not getting enough is that, number one, it's just wiring. Don't make yourself wrong. You didn't know any better. But beating yourself up only strengthens the freaking wiring. You know, when I picked up a Science of Getting Rich a year and a half ago or whatever, sort of my mantra was you don't have the luxury of dwelling on negative thoughts. And it was all in the context of the Science of Getting Rich and more law of attraction-y type of things. Now let's bring it back to biology. If we sit there and habitually go back to our negative thoughts, which is what is going to happen because we're wired that way and we make ourselves wrong for it, then can we agree, it's time to say yes again, can we agree that we only make those grooves deeper, only make those neural pathways stronger? Every time we justify the way that we interpret something negatively, for whatever reason, yeah, but you don't understand, Bob. I've tried this, blah, 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 blah. Here's my story. And every time you do it, you dig that groove deeper. People, when it comes down to it, they would rather be right than do the work and change their thoughts persistently, because it is not easy. Because you're going against decades of wiring. That's why you've got to be gentle with yourself. And you have to be patient. And you have to be consistent. You cannot treat this like a program you're doing. It's your life. Your whole life, as it is now, is a result of you allowing yourself to become programmed and buy into other people's ideas of limitation. End of story. Now you know better. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I buy these programs, I saw The Secret, I read this book, blah, 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 and I do these exercises, and that's the approach people take. They do those things, and then they go, well, where's the result? Decades of wiring. Those neural pathways that are so strong that you have fortified daily with justification as to why you can. Even if you're in the midst of the most amazing personal development program and aha moments everywhere, if you keep going back to justifying your old wiring and your limited thinking and all of that, you're just digging those grooves deeper. You're never going to be able to see the world the way that you want to see it in all of your visioning and your vision boards and things like that if you keep putting attention on those other thoughts. The way it works is this. The wiring, your brain is going to act predominant with the most wiring. You're going to automatically go in the direction that your brain is most wired. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I want yeses. Does it make sense that in any given situation, if you're not consciously being aware of how you're feeling, how you're thinking, that your brain is just going to automatically go to wherever it's most wired, right? Obviously. So, a lot of people go to the negative first. That was my deal for freaking decades. And while I was in this conversation, when I was, since I've been teaching this stuff, because it's my wiring. But because I was able to become conscious of it, I was able to change my wiring. But now it's a whole new deal, a whole new level of commitment that I have, at least for myself, because I'm realizing the more I dig into all of this, it has to be ideally all the time. When you read The Science of Getting Rich and it talks about thinking and acting in a certain way, it's talking about being that all the time, not 30 minutes a day or an hour a day or 10 days in a row. You have to shift it. In one conversation, it's your vibration. On the other conversation, it's your wiring, because the wiring, guess what, is going to control ultimately your vibration. That's why we don't even need to talk about the law of attraction, because none of that stuff, no program you take, nothing is going to give you the result you want until your wiring is going to allow it. And so if you go into any program going, I need results in 3 days or whatever, and then they're not there, you just for another groove. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Betty. Oh, yeah, not hey, Betty. I was just, in my mind, I was acknowledging, because I've already said hello to you. Hey, Tommy. Now I'm catching up with over here. So Kevin asked the $1,000,000 question, right? How do you change the wiring? Now, again, I did not come here to plug the webinar, but I do talk about that. I'll just run by some things. I'll give you some things right now. But the thing is, 99% of the people will not do these things enough to change the wiring or the vibration. That's the problem, guys. The reason that the personal development industry has this 93% failure rate is not because the material isn't good. It's because our brains, for most people who are seeking to grow, they're growing against old wiring. The people who will succeed are the people who have that freaking strong vision and know why they're doing it and understand that it's going to take some time. Aren't attached to it having to be a certain way, because when you understand all of this, you'll understand why you don't need to be attached to it looking a certain way. I'm just looking at your comments. Hi, Christine. Hey, Cher, you snuck in. Well, maybe you've been here a while. So, basically, if you're going to change your wiring, you need to change the input, right? So, monitoring your thoughts and getting a handle on those is just one part of it. And let me just say something. This may not be super popular, because even in The Secret it was said, the whole idea is like, and we've said many times, it's not about monitoring every single thought. It would be overwhelming. You have 60,000 thoughts a day or whatever, and obviously that would be impossible. We can't think that fast to focus on those. However, we do get caught up on a lot more thoughts than we need to, that we don't monitor, that we just let slide. So being mindful of when you go down that negative road, learning how to go, oh my God, I'm doing it right now. I'm having a negative thought. I'm totally responding. This is wiring 100%. If that right there is the first step to changing it. You've got to recognize it, and you got to own it, and you got to stop justifying it for any reason. And just know that your justification is there. You want to justify it so much because you're wired. You've become that person. It's who you are. And now you're asking to change, and your wiring isn't there, and it's just going to feel, it just wants to do what it wants to do. And now you're asking it to do something else, so that's why it's uncomfortable. But you got to change the input. So yes, your thoughts. But you can do that by doing external things too. You can change your environment. I mean, I worked in a job where I would go into the office and immediately, whoa, the soul is crushed, right? And all you think about in that situation is what you don't like. So if you're in an environment where you look around and you're just triggered all the time in a negative way, you got to change your environment. That's not hard. You don't have to move. Move some furniture, bring in a candle, burn some incense, I don't know, whatever's going to change your state. And you got to do it consistently. You know, and change your habits. You got to really look at your habits because your habits are certainly wiring, right? Can we agree? Your habits are wiring. And so much so that a lot of them don't even feel like habits anymore. It's just how you operate. But any sort of, and when I mean habit, I don't mean like smoking, drinking, that kind of stuff. I'm talking about things, patterns in your life that may or may not be serving your higher good, your vision. It may not be in alignment with the person that you say you want to be, but you don't even notice it because it's just these grooves and you're on autopilot. All right, if you haven't said hello yet, please do. So changing your habits, taking a look and going, okay, this probably isn't the best use of my time, or this what I'm doing right now feels more like the me I don't want to be. What would the me I want to be doing be? What would the me I want to be doing right now? You know, like instead of just sitting there binging something on Netflix, the person you want to be would rather be running by the beach. So go. You have to start, like when you look at rewiring yourself, you got to look at first, who do we want to rewire yourself to be? And what would that person do in these situations where you're going, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. I don't like how I'm being. I don't like how I'm making meaning out of it. I just don't like this right now. What would the person who you'd like to be, how would they handle that situation? How would they interpret it? How would they change it? Whatever. And then look at, well, what of that could you go ahead and do? Like so many times we put conditions on being that until we have $1 million or move into that place. Then I'll be able to be that. Guys, a lot of the time you can start being it now. And in fact, that's the fast route. Because then you literally start rewiring, not just through thoughts, but through actions. And getting feedback from people as a result of you being that new person. And every time you get that positive feedback, the wiring goes this way. And the less you use the old wiring, it'll dwindle away. That's how it works. If you don't use it, you lose it, basically. It's just not going to rule you anymore. Doesn't mean that there's no little thread that you might be able to tap into. You don't have amnesia here. But you're changing, where do you go to automatically? More positive, more in alignment than where you go negatively. Yes, Sarah, people lack patience with it. And a lot of that is the fault of the personal development industry. Hey, 3 days to, 7 days to, 30 days to, 90 days to, 100 right. I mean, I've done it. You got to have some structure. You got to put, I'm a huge fan of 90-day things. I think that's just the right amount. But it has to be 90 days of everybody doing what they've got to be doing and not spending so much time coming up with reasons why they're not doing it. But it's not, the thing about this type, if I look at this as a coaching thing, talking about how, like rewiring people, if I really want to do my job, it's pretty brutal coaching. You can't be soft. You can't let a person go down that road because you're not serving them. There are things that need to be processed in your life, and there are plenty of tools to do that stuff. Now, once that's done, we still got to deal with the wiring. Or we're dealing with the wiring, and let's see what happens to those freaking issues when you stop paying so much attention to them. I'm not talking about repressing. Just not giving them energy, replacing your wiring as something else that's more empowering. But again, you got to know what that is. Of course, Angela, I remember you. I still think about you standing in that box. Now everybody's going, what? We are conditional livers. We need certain conditions to be a certain way to be happy. Well, that's what we've learned, but not everybody in the world believes that. I mean, like I said, look, I'm sure you've heard of other cultures where any of us plopped in the middle of there would be, how can these people be smiling and yet they're genuinely exuding happiness because they don't put the same conditions on happiness as we do. And that's all wiring. We all have brains, and they all have the ability to be wired. Theirs was wired to be happy in any given situation. Ours wasn't. Ours was wired to be happy if you've got this and this and this and this and this. So it's no wonder, since those things don't bring happiness, that we have a bunch of unhappy grown-ups. Lots of happy, exuberant kids until they're wired to think like the freaking grown-ups who were wired by the grown-ups before them. It has been 10 years. In fact, it's been exactly 10 years. I think it was December of 2010. That's a whole other story. I was not prepared to be in Canada. I didn't have any Canadian money. I didn't know the metric system. And I didn't get a roaming plan on my phone. I did not think that through. But I digress. So the whole purpose of me just doing this broadcast is more of a, hey. I'm not, selling you anything or anything like that. If you want to do the webinar, it's somewhere else. But I've talked about it enough here. What I'm trying to get you to hopefully just plant a seed that next time you have some upset, next time you have, and really look, because some of you may be living in such low vibe wiring that you don't even see it. Like you can't even see that it's wiring. But if you're not happy, that's the first clue that you've got some faulty, if you will, wiring. Meaning it's just not serving who you'd rather be. But man, oh man, people just own their stuff and they post on Facebook how this and that about their lives and blah, 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 just groove. They are making it true, and then they'll post an inspirational quote. And they wonder, why isn't this working? Because they love to post the quotes until so-and-so pisses them off, and then they feel justified to go down anger road and just justify everything. That's wiring. There's nothing true about any of that. It's just you made meaning. No, they did it. Nah, fine. They could even tell you, I'm doing this because. And you still have to make the meaning that's going to affect you. Angela picked up the guitar 5 months ago, picked it up fast. I can play 12 songs now. Outstanding. Isn't it nice to be able to just play music? I'm a fan. All right, so again, to answer Kevin's original question, how do you do this? So you can change those things, but ultimately, it's going to be about, like, ridiculously consistent. More consistent than just about any personal development program could be, because what you really need is somebody there every moment going, for fastest results. And man, that's going to be annoying at first. That's what I was saying about the coaching. Because when you go up against somebody else's wiring and they're all justified for why they feel the way they do, even though they came to you because they want help, but when you start, they're going to give you every reason. And it's not going to feel good. But if you're, the whole reason I ask all those questions at the beginning, so that you would confirm with your own letters, your own typing, that if you could change your brain, your life could change. So then it just depends on how worth it is it to you to do it, to change it. If you can imagine it, right, and other people have achieved it, the only difference between you and them is action they've taken as a result of different wiring and how they've made meaning out of their lives. So yeah, it'll take time. Okay, so it'll take time. Or you could not start it at all and everything will stay the same. Kelly, what keeps you on track when you trip? First of all, knowing that everything's cyclical. You're going to have ups and downs. When we pull back, it's an energetic universe, and it's all waves, ups and downs. It's what do we do with those downs? What meaning do we make? When you trip, what do you make that mean? What is a trip? Does it mean that an expectation isn't met, either of yourself or others? It doesn't have to have any emotion around it. It can just be, oh, there's some data. I'm going to act differently this time. I'm going to think differently this time. But we get all emotional in it because of our wiring. So if you were to say to me, oh, Bob, I tripped up today, I'd be like, okay, well, what happened? And why are you making it mean that something's wrong? And sometimes that's a deep dive because on the surface, it looks really wrong. But that's the problem. We don't go deep enough sometimes, and there's just a million reasons. Our wiring is very complex. So it's any kind of personal development, any kind of change in your life, it's monumental what's going on up here. There are ways that the wiring takes place faster, right? There's techniques like sometimes hypnosis and NLP, and there's these back doors, and trauma, or big, huge freaking ahas where there's this wave of emotion and you get this clarity. That can also do it. But it's still going to be driven by some sort of a vision for who you want to be and why you want to feel this way and how it's going to be, why it is worth doing whatever you've got to do. And while, gratitude things in the morning are great or in the evening or keeping it, it's like, but that's morning and evening. What are you doing with all the other hours of your day mentally? What meaning are you making? And what are the results of the way that you're making that meaning? How do you feel? Are you enjoying it? Do you feel abundant? Do you feel on purpose? Or do you feel stuck and you're justifying it or pointing at reasons or beating yourself up? All of which is understandable because it's how we're wired. So if you can just let yourself off the hook and just know that, it's not even an issue of doing the best you can. You just were, and then you're wired, and then you're doing the best you can with the data you're given because you're literally programmed. Input, I know what to do with this input. It's to feel this way, take this action, get angry, whatever, blame somebody. That's what I do with this input. That's wiring. You can change that. Here's what I do with that input. Let it go. Give it no meaning. You can do it, but you just got to be wired to do it. And that takes practice and repetition. I'm reading your comments. Awesome, Sonova. Yeah. Now I'm reading, hold on. Yes, making your whys into musts. That's actually something that I used to say all the time. That used to be another one of my mantras. It's like, why must I do this? Like when you're looking at your vision, if you're feeling stuck or whatever, and your vision doesn't seem big enough, you got to be able to answer the question, why must I do this? The vision has to be big, folks, because you've got to want it so bad that when it gets uncomfortable, it's worth going through the discomfort, or it's worth doing whatever you have to do to get rewired. If it's not worth it, it's not big enough. Like you're not feeling enough pain. You think you are, but you're tolerating it. And the only reason you would tolerate it is because if you can see something bigger for yourself, you don't believe you can get there. Well, now we've had the conversation. Now you know you can get there, but the wiring has to change. You have to feed different data in. Instead of I can't, it's how did I? I'm going to share this tip with you, and then I guess I'm going to go. This is really about you just pondering, what are you willing to do? And if you were able to rewire, this is what I'd really love to see in the comments. If you were able to rewire, regardless of how long it took, and regardless of what you had to do it, what would your life look like? What would it feel like? can you create something in your mind that would be worth doing it, whatever it took? If you know it's going to work because you know you could, if you're consistent, if you feed it the right input, your brain will change. We know this. Your whole life is proof of it. Lots of repetition, Sarah says. I don't know if she said that forever ago or if I don't know how this is scrolling. I have a different, it's more. Hey, Joe. All right, let me see. I'm just trying to catch up. What? Core thought. It's the fear of losing meaningful relationships. This sucks. And why would you lose those meaningful relationships? Because you're changing? I can really jump into that one. No longer focus on trying to understand why others' unsuccessful actions keep happening. Talking about the people that I'm close to. Well, right. Now, Joe, I believe we've had the conversation around wanting anything for other people. And our interpretation of their actions and the meaning we give it is us. Us. All right, so without TV, I've meditated and read books a lot. My vision is to stay happy no matter what. Things will be just as I vision it. Angela has a picture of her wallet when she was 3. I would like to know a little bit more about that. Wish stuff would get better. I have faith it will. That's Matthew. Oh, right up there. Yeah, so that sentence, Matthew didn't ask for any coaching. But that sentence has an energy to it that, in my mind, isn't strong enough to create wiring that is going to change things. Now, again, we can stop the conversation right here with the wiring and the decisions you make and the meaning you give things, because it will determine your the action you take. Or we could take it further and talk law of attraction and science of getting rich and impressing the formless substance. This is the transmitter, right? And if we're wishing stuff would get better, we are fully in the feeling that things are not good. I wish things would get better because that's not what you want to be sending out, because of course not only, again, you could just disregard the whole energy law of attraction thing if you want to. That the idea that holding on to that feeling is just going to attract more of it. Holding on to that feeling is going to have you holding on to that feeling. You're going to continue to feel like you wish that it would get better and that you have faith that it will. That is way different than you know that it's coming and you're acting as if you have it right now. The energy on that is, I hope you can feel it. Because I know a lot of people approach this law of attraction work sort of longingly. You know, I know it's going to happen and I know this and I just have, and you can hear it in the blah, 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 but you feel it. It's visceral. They're not energetically in alignment with who they want to be. They're in alignment with being a person who wants to be something else. Do you see the difference? How many of you can answer this publicly or not. How many of you are actually being somebody way different than you'd ultimately like to be? When you're really honest with yourself, how many of you are consistently thinking like the person you want to be as opposed to the person that you're not? Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, I just went crazy. This is stage stuff right here, and I'm just giving it away. All right. I'm trying to. Sometimes it's hard to take comments just out of context and know what the context was. But anyway, and I hope I'm seeing everybody's comments. Seems like most people are on Facebook. Should be over at YouTube too, and in fact, I should be on my timeline and the Bob Doyle Show page. I don't know. So if you're watching on YouTube anymore, say hello. I see. So, okay, so Angela was commenting a while back about why she had the picture. 2 minutes, 2 different places to see comments. Relationships make it complicated, says Liz. Now, again, you didn't ask for coaching. And this is why coaching on this is so freaking annoying. Because I would just jump right on you and say, yes, that is definitely something you believe. Relationships make it complicated because you interpret what happens in the change of dynamic and managing that as complicated. Because that's how we've learned to define managing the shift in a relationship. Oh, it's complicated. We've got so many emotions. Da, da, da. So you're wired to think relationships make it complicated. So every time you look out in the world and who you're being in the world and what you're putting out there and what you're wired is, that if it's going to be, if relationship changes are going to happen, that's going to complicate things. Why would you want to throw yourself fully into something that you've already decided is going to be complicated? Well, you're welcome, Kelly. Nostra Vince. I think I said it just right. All right. Oh, phew. I still want to see in the comments. Maybe you got to think about it. If you could rewire, and you can. How about this? You know what? Asking a different question. Since you can rewire, and you know what to do, at least what to start, how to start, and what's necessary, how are you going to rewire yourself, and what's your life going to look like on the other side? I would love for you to explain fully. You don't have to do it right now. Well, it'd be great if you did. And how it's going to feel, and why you must have it. That's basic law of attraction stuff, but it's not just law of attraction stuff. It's going to help you rewire your brain to be more in alignment with the successful person, whatever that looks like and feels like to you. Because I'm telling you, any program on the planet isn't going to get in there unless they're somehow bypassing or changing your wiring. If your wiring isn't changing, then the program isn't going to change you, no matter how great it is. Because if you spend a week on it and then go right back to whatever you were doing, that old wiring, it hasn't withered yet. It's just waiting for an input to revive it. And so then you walk into your cubicle after taking a week off, doing this great retreat, and now you recharge, you walk into your cubicle, trigger, 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 wiring, boom, you're right back. How many times has this happened to you? You know what I'm talking about? Does everyone know what I'm talking about? All right. Oh, look at that. I got a couple. I asked and I did receive, although it's already scrolled by. You saw it. Had a couple of folks from YouTube. Jim was on YouTube. Sarah bounced over to YouTube. Or maybe she was always there. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I was in the groove. The groove. Isn't this nice? I was just like, what's going to make me feel all in this conversation? And that's it. I don't know whether the studio is supposed to be floating on it or whether we're elevated looking out over it. I like the idea that it would be on the water. All right. Valerie, you missed the whole thing. All right, so Nub says, oh, think about this, Bob. I love your show so much, and I learned so much that I am awake in the middle of the night. 3:08 in the morning. Well, in the night, she says. She's saying in the night. We'd say it's in the morning, right? Just go to sleep happy that I learned something new. Awesome. Well, thank you, Sonova. That's so nice of you. I appreciate that very much. It's nice to feel appreciated. So anyway, all right, that's my challenge. It's the Rewire Challenge. What are you going to do? Since you know you can rewire. And let me tell you something. Oh, see, what I need to do is I need to plant a seed so that you cannot let yourself off the hook. Like every time you go down a road, I need you to hear my voice. Wiring, 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 wiring. I'm going to say it enough where it's going to happen. so that you don't, and the trigger is wiring, you hear my voice, and you realize I don't have to respond this way if I don't want to. I don't have to respond this way. I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to take this action. I don't have to have this thought. I don't have to go down this road at all if I don't want to. Am I going to be stronger than my wiring impulse and create a different idea? And guys, it's like you're up against a whole thicket that has not yet been cleared. It's the first time you're going. You're building a new thing. It's going to be at first, but the more you do it, the more the path clears. Oh, look, an analogy and everything. Okay, I know I've said I was going to say goodbye a couple of times. That's pretty much how I roll. I'm not sure how to answer your question without answering it in the future tense. Just don't. Ideally, what everybody would say is, you phrase it like, now that I've rewired, blah. I don't know. Something that inspires you. You can do it. And if you don't do it, you got to ask yourself, why am I not doing this? Why am I not going to do this? Wiring. That's why. Because your wiring says, this isn't going to work. It's going to take too long. It's going to be too hard. I don't know what I want. I've done it before. That's why you wouldn't do it. Because your wiring would tell you not to and give you all the reasons not to. Wiring. That's my opinion anyway. Okay. Bob, you missed the whole thing. You're right. But you know what? You'll be able to watch the replay in 3 different places. If everything went well. I think it did. I didn't check YouTube. But obviously, Sarah's there. And Bob's watching on YouTube, so of course it's there. I love this new service. It's made my life so much easier. Comments in VR, it's just, oh, my life just got so great. See, that's how you talk to yourself. Okay. I'm not going to ignore Liz's question from forever ago. What about long-standing emotional situational patterns? Yes, it's just long-standing emotional. That's when you would do maybe a process like EFT or hypnosis or learn some NLP to bypass that wiring. But don't give in and say to yourself, well, it's long-standing, I guess I can't change it. You can change it all. You just have to stop feeding it. And people own their issues so much. Well, I've just always had an issue with this. Stop saying that. I'm sure you acknowledged it plenty of time ago. You don't need to acknowledge it anymore. Because every time you do, well, it's just who I am. Okay. Well, I've been dealing with it. You've got to stop justifying giving it energy, because you just have to, every time you do it, you have to imagine yourself just making that tunnel, that groove deeper or the tunnel deeper or whatever, in whichever direction you're going. All right, I can't stop talking. So I'm going to fade to a screen and leave you all with your own thoughts. And I'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. for, of course, well, it's not a timer, it's just a clock. That's what time it is. It's 6:11:11. I just thought it'd be interesting to look at. All right, bye.